Myself, Gilbert Cedillo. This constitutes quorum, and we will prepare to move forward with public comment. I see that we have Susan Hunter and general public comment, I think it is.
Thank you. Susan Hunter, Housing is a Human Right. Just for general comment, I am respectfully asking that this committee might be able to put some pressure on our system, city council, mayor's office to make sure that we can get our tenant protections. We have so many options on the table right now, and they're just kind of stuck in process. So anything that we can do to help get some of these motions passed, help keep people housed as soon as possible, I think coming from this committee would have a lot of weight. So thank you for your time.
Those matters are not, we've moved those matters outside our committee, right?
Yes, but to try and get them to, in case you have to come back, we should on the envelope.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it. That closes public comment. Yes, sir? Public comment on item number 2? Okay, well, you should come up, Mr. Sachs. No, please join us. Let me see here. I'm not getting the list. Where are they? Yes. Those who have signed up for item 2, there's 8 of you. Please come forward. Okay. Mr. Millen.
Yes.
Jane Demian, Marie Rumsey, Steve Ducey, Mariana Huerta Jones, Chris Roth, Liz Hirsch, and Beverly Kenworthy. Is that it? Okay. Mr. Millman.
Yes, good afternoon. Mike Millman, M-I-L-L-M-A-N. I don't think this tax on vacant units ready for prime time. I think it needs to be studied. As you're well aware from your experience in Sacramento, under an Ellis Act removal, it is the law that you must keep those units vacant for a term of not less than 5 years. So you're obeying the law by keeping them vacant, Mr. Chair, but at the same time you want to tax them. I think that would be an unlawful activity. I think state law trumps and preempts anything the city can do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jane Demian.
Jane Demian. I'm grateful to the sponsors of this motion. There is a troubling and stark contrast between 112,000 vacant habitable housing units in Los Angeles, while thousands of unhoused people live in tents on streets, in their cars, or couch surfing. This is not the time for property owners to hoard their habitable rental housing, nor is it the time to commoditize rental housing to make a fast profit. We have a crisis of supply that will not be satisfied by building more. That will take years. The crisis is now. We also have a crisis of affordability. Owners of rental property need to rent those units to long-term tenants at reasonable rents. While we wait for LA voters to pass this proposition, the City Council needs to stop criminalizing the unhoused and instead provide safe parking, safe and secure shelter immediately.
Thank you. Marie Rumsey.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Marie Rumsey. I'm here with the Central City Association. And we appreciate the goal of this motion to utilize every available vacant unit of housing in the midst of this housing crisis and want to work with the city on the details of it. We also believe this action is just one of many that should be pursued. We also need action related to increasing housing production. There are not enough housing units in the region to meet demand. Every option from declaring a homelessness state of emergency to creating new land use incentives to establishing an economic development corporation should be explored. We look forward to learning more details about this and our continued dialogue. Thank you.
Steve Doucet?
Yeah, I'm actually here representing Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council. We have a community impact statement on file on this. I believe the clerk has entitled me to 5 minutes to speak on this matter. I don't need the full 5, but I'd like more than the minute, if possible.
Correct?
You submitted.
There's a community impact statement on file from Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council on this.
Correct?
I won't take the full 5 minutes, but I do want to thank Councilmember Bonin's office for taking this item up. A little bit of credit also goes to Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell's office. Had a meeting with the staffer in his office, and he said to us, in terms of things that are policy-oriented for affordable housing, let's look to other municipalities, see things that have worked in other places. And so I immediately thought of Vancouver, British Columbia, and the vacancy tax that they passed in that city, and they had had some success with it, and it looked to be a viable option for returning units to the market and also providing additional funding for affordable housing. That's why I introduced the resolution in our neighborhood council for the city to study this potential vacancy tax, or empty homes penalty as it's now called. And that was passed along to Councilmember Bonin's office, and that made it happen. So I also want to thank Strategic Actions for Just Economy. We're an organization that was working on a vacancy tax proposal in the past. A lot of other organizations have worked on proposals like this in other municipalities. And I think it's, like fellow speaker said, it's one tool of many that we can utilize to solve some of the housing woes that we have in the city. Regardless of what comes out of the motion and the study, I think, just having this data on habitable housing units is going to be extremely vital for us as a city, especially when we look at the regional housing needs assessment numbers that came out recently, showing that, we only had 430 units that were approved in the middle income areas, and we've had, hundreds of thousands of units in the upper income areas. And obviously those are the kind of units that we're talking about that are probably vacant because there aren't people who live in Los Angeles who make enough money to afford those units. And so, this could be a way to help us bring back the missing middle. Maybe people who have vacant apartments are going to be less likely to keep them open and more likely to rent them to people who are moderate income people like myself, who struggle to find an apartment that doesn't cost half their income in rent. So yeah, I appreciate the body's consideration of this, and I look forward to it being passed along to full council and seeing the results of the study.
Mariana Huerta-Jones?
Good afternoon. Mariana Huerta-Jones with the Alliance for Community Transit Los Angeles. We are here to strongly support the motion before the Housing Committee today to study the amount of habitable empty homes in LA and examine an empty homes penalty structure for the city of LA. The city's housing affordability crisis will require many solutions. A penalty on empty homes can be one of several tools utilized to provide relief by returning vacant units to the rental market, and also to raise the necessary funding to support rehousing programs and to build affordable housing for very low income and extremely low income Angelenos. With over 36,000 people in the city of LA sleeping on the streets, inside their cars, or in temporary shelters, we must be able to identify where there are homes sitting empty in LA that can be housing people. We need to follow the lead of cities like Vancouver and Oakland that have adopted vacancy tax measures and have seen formerly empty rental units being returned to the rental housing market. So we urge the Housing Committee to adopt this motion so that we can obtain key information about empty homes and develop a vacancy ballot tax measure. Thanks.
Thank you. Chris Roth?
Good afternoon. I am very happy to see that this motion is being taken into consideration. I would argue that if there is a challenge that is posed by recently Ellis Act evictions, that we could easily make a kind of a carve-out that says that if a unit was Ellis Acted within the last 5 years per state law, then it doesn't have this kind of an empty homes tax applying to it. So that one...
So for the author?
What was that?
Is that an amendment for the author?
I would suggest as a response to the previous public comment that was made at the start of this hearing. My further suggestion would be to, if we are going to be looking at making some amendments to the motion, that we could consider including an amendment to impose a similar tax to vacant commercial properties. Because the vacant commercial properties on the ground floor of so many of the buildings here in downtown are simply a blight upon this local economy and on the local community, making areas that are very difficult for pedestrians to make use of and are just generally undesirable. Thank you very much.
Specifically, you're talking about the mixed use.
Correct. Specifically things like the Jeff Palmer developments. Thanks.
Thank you. Liz Hirsch, Beverly Kenworthy, Molly Rhodes.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. My name is Liz Hirsch. I am a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, Los Angeles. I am a mother. I'm a teacher. I live in Hollywood. I am so excited to have the privilege to speak in support of this motion today. It's really exciting to see something with so much promise come before the committee. So I also just want to thank the sponsors of this motion to study. I think it would be amazing to find out the exact number of vacant habitable units. That's a really great first step. The amount of housing that's being used for speculation, for second homes, for Airbnb in this city is unconscionable considering the humanitarian crisis that we're all experiencing right now. People are paying 30, 40, 50, 90% of their income in rent, or they're just living outside. I also want to say, though, if this revenue goes to just more developer-led, quote-unquote, affordable housing, it's a shame. It needs to be used for social housing that is community-controlled. Thank you so much.
Molly Rhodes.
Hi, I'm Molly Rhodes with SEIU 721, and I just wanted to express our support for the study moving forward. Housing is a critical issue for everybody in the city. We all see everybody on the streets. So we commend you for looking at this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie Carnell.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlie Carno. I'm a research analyst for Unite Here Local 11, just here to strongly support this measure. You know, working class people are among the most affected by our housing crisis. Our members provide accommodations for the people coming from out of town, but oftentimes have a hard time finding a way to be housed here. Just as a personal note, on my street, there's an apartment building that's been vacant for a couple of years. It is an Ellis property, overgrown with weeds, and I think the vacancy tax discussion is a great way to address issues like that and really start tearing down these idols of speculation so they can become housing for real folks rather than just another way for people to add a little bit of extra money in the future to their bottom lines. Thank you.
Beverly Kenworthy.
Hi, Beverly Kenworthy. I'm with the California Apartment Association. A few things. We think the numbers quoted in this motion are misleading. The American Community Survey counts a vacant unit if the current tenant is going to be out in 2 months. So it says nothing about whether that unit is going to be re-rented or have a new tenant in that. That being said, there's lots of reasons that units might be vacant. For instance, a new building usually takes about 6 to 12 months to lease. So I think the devil's in the details here, and I would really like to see this issue come back so the departments can discuss what the criteria is. Are we looking at condos? Are we looking at homes? Are we looking at multifamily units? Are they for rent? How long have they been for rent? Are they under rehabilitation? We're not going to understand the true nature of our vacancy until we understand those issues. So I do hope that if the study moves forward, that we have an accurate count.
Thank you. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you. For the record, Arnold Sachs. And I am somewhat amazed. Didn't we have a foreclosure penalty few years ago when we had a foreclosure crisis that the city assessed $1,000 on foreclosed property that was in disrepair? And how much money did the city collect on that? 0. So now you want to do a vacant, empty house penalty structure. What is that exactly? Could you include vacant cars? People said people sleep in cars. Vacant car is a place to sleep. vacant trucks, vacant buses. How about a value-added tax on some of the new construction that goes on and putting that tax money to use? How about MICLA funds to rehab some of these empty buildings, the municipal corporation guaranteed by the city of Los Angeles? They can be repaid by the leases, by the rents that people pay. How about that? Boy, you want more tax, and nothing was ever said about marijuana. Nothing. Nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. I have Alexander Ferrer.
Sorry.
Hi, thank you. So according to the Census Bureau's latest 5-year estimate, there are 41,325 units in Los Angeles that are in a state of speculative vacancy or total abandonment. These are units with owners that are not occupied, not for lease, not for sale, not under seasonal use, not in the market at all. For reference, that's more than one for every houseless resident, all 36,300 counted by LAHSA in 2019. Similarly, over 801 million square feet of vacant privately owned lots are within the city currently, reflecting another type of speculative vacancy through land banking. Meanwhile, downtown is seeing a luxury condo boom amid our housing crisis, with more units owned as investments by corporate entities than home to residents. Speculative vacancy is hurting our communities and locking people out of the market. A speculation tax or a vacancy fee could help fix that. Thank you.
I close this public comment. Please join us. Please join us.
Thank you. Susan Hunter, Housing is a Human Right. I don't think the devil's in the details. I think the devil's in the land speculation. And this bill actually addresses that. If it's taking you 6 months to rent out a new unit, it's because you need to bring the rental price down until people can actually afford to move into it. I would ask that we also consider an additional fine for anybody who is using a rental property for hotel purpose in a way not intended. So in that way we can make sure that when we're actually calculating our vacancy, that we do a correct calculation. We don't want to use something like water and power meters, because if something's being used for hotel purpose, it will assume that somebody's living there even though they're actually not a resident. So anything that we can do to crack down on illegal hotel usage, if it's an additional fine, as well as making sure that we're actually using our housing for our housing, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Bonin?
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your giving the courtesy of scheduling this matter today. Thank you for your attention. Colleagues, I don't think I need to tell anyone on this council, anyone in this building, really the extent of the homelessness crisis in Los Angeles, the significance of the affordable housing crisis that we suffer from. I think we're all well aware that there's a shortage of 500,000 units of affordable housing for low-income renters, that the median rent is unaffordable for anyone making less than $47 an hour, and that nearly 750,000 people in Los Angeles are paying more than 50% of their monthly income for rent. And I think that we've all gotten to a point of frustration and of determination to look at every possible proposal and to leave no stone unturned in how we can address this crisis. And this proposal that we've put forward is the beginning of a process. There's a lot of questions unanswered, and there's a lot of data that we need to firm up. But the U.S. Census data from 2017 indicated that there were as many as 220,000 vacant units in Los Angeles County, 111,000 of them in the city of Los Angeles. That is not enough to set policy, but it is enough to push us to launch a study to begin to figure out what the actual hard data is and how we might proceed. Cities around North America and some in Europe have begun to look at this type of proposal. In the city of Vancouver, they implemented an empty homes penalty, and 15% of the vacant units were returned to the rental market. In Oakland, voters recently approved a similar proposal. It's just getting kicked off. They estimate that will net them millions of dollars every year that can help fund affordable housing there. There is a need to explore this, and I'm eager for us to do it. I think it's also important to understand the significance of the coalition that is behind this. We have a huge problem with a lack of housing in Los Angeles, and the conversation often stalls and gets stymied because you have a number of people who will say, why do we need more housing when there's so many vacant units? So I'm interested in taking that conversation stopper off the plate by actually addressing it and moving forward and handling it. There is something unusual about the coalition that has come forward behind this. I was approached separately by two separate sort of wings of the housing debate that do not often come together. Abundant housing on one side and ground game and SAGE on the other side. You rarely see that coalition and that consensus that there's an idea worthy to be explored. And I would say this may be historic. This may be the first time we've heard people from Democratic Socialists of America and Central City Association testifying in behalf of doing the same study. And I think when you have that kind of diverse consensus that we should look at something, it's worth doing. So I would ask that we move forward with this, that we do it expeditiously. If we were to do an empty homes penalty here in Los Angeles, it's quite likely it would have to go before the voters. So obviously we want to study it and look at the scope and have plenty of time to prepare for either a 2020 or a 2022 ballot. The only potential change I would ask in the motion I made is in the departments that we asked to look at the study, I'd also ask if we could add the Department of Water and Power. They have a lot of data that could be pretty useful in determining the scope of vacancy in the city of Los Angeles, and it would be useful to have them at the table and have their data as part of the equation. So I'd like to thank you for your consideration and ask that we move forward on this so we can begin to take one more whack at the affordable housing and homeless crisis in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Mr. Bonin, did I hear you right saying that when this was effectuated in Vancouver, that 15% of the units were returned to occupation?
1.5, yes. 15%.
80% remain vacant?
Yeah. Yep. But then that generated, some of them in Vancouver may have been ones that were an exception from the policy. We heard testimony from Ms. Kenworthy today that there are some exceptions that you might want to make when somebody is doing a rehab or refurbishment. So we may want to come up with a policy that makes exceptions. And even those that do, even those, if ones did not meet an exception and decided not to go back on the market, that's revenue that we would then get from the penalty that could be used for affordable housing or homeless housing here in Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we close public comment? Did we close public comment?
You had plenty of opportunity for
I
it.
know that, sir, but I'm wondering if you're late.
You had plenty of
Appreciate
opportunity
that,
for it.
but we may be done. I'm sorry that you're late, but did we close?
It wasn't done, they can close public.
You completed all general public comment.
You have comment on subject matter before us. You want to come up and make your comment, sir? Mr. Spindler, please join us on subject matter that's on the agenda.
For the record, regarding Prop HHH, case number 12CV00551, under FMO PJWX, this homeless crisis is really, really, really fucked up. We must stop this retaliatory action of discrimination towards the disabled and the elderly who on their meager funds can just barely sustain themselves in this economical crisis of housing. Shame on you, Eric Garcetti. Shame on you, Miguel Santana. And shame on our social government for fucking up our housing in California.
Thank you.
How much time I get?
Mr. Spindler, you get a minute.
What? Only a minute? turn guild now to the dark side. And I see, oh, look at that. Somebody went behind the ropes.
Mr. Spindler.
And I see somebody named Goat here. And Mr. Goat's concerned about a security matter because Mr. Goat sees that a slave has went past the velvet ropes.
Mr. Spindler raises an excellent point, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
Stop the clock.
actually not supposed to be permitted by members of the public.
That's right. And this is the first time ever that me and Mr. Krikorian have ever agreed. It's the beginning of a new piece.
Right on the same.
You're my nigger now. Yes, that's right. You're not just a goat, you're a personal nigger. Thank you so much. Mr. Spindler made a good
He
point.
took all his time on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Su apellido, por favor.
Cortez, Gloria, and I'm with the ACE organization. I'm here saying thank you guys to be able to hear about this motion, and I'm here in all support. I've been homeless for 2 years. Do you see my kids? One is 3. It's been 2 years that she's been homeless, and my other kid born with the tag as a homeless. So the only thing that is keeping us to find a house is because we don't make enough money to find a place, and it's horrible that there's a lot of empty units and they don't allow us to rent because they want to make more profit. So I hope that you guys take that into consideration because it's hurting a lot of families. And it's sad to be that the kids have to live with this. I know that unfortunately as a homeless we have a huge tag, but not all the homeless are criminals. Not all the kids deserve to have this life. And I really, really hope that you guys go for it because we need to put pressure on them to find houses for everyone.
Thank you for your presence.
Thank you.
Ms. Antonia, please.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I hate carrying my bags, and I have somebody right now, he's a deaf young man, who's watching my 2 shopping carts in La Placita. So I'm blessed that I have somebody watching my stuff, even though I don't pay him, and I feel bad, but he's a lovely soul. Ladies and gentlemen, in La Placita, we have a lot of problems right now as Latina homeless women. We now have Skid Row niggers. We have the fags, lesbians, and trannies and bisexuals. We have white trash junkies, and we have Chango Latino gangbangers and wetbacks preying on Latina women and robbing us. The little that we have, we get robbed and attacked. On weekends, I am in my tent in sweltering heat, sleeping or trying to sleep because I want a little bit of my privacy. So what I do, I stay in the tent on weekends to sleep and rest. I am sweltering like a pig, but it's the only place I have my privacy, at least privacy. And I am dousing myself with water because I'm just so fed up of this goddamn life. God bless America and God bless Donald Trump.
Soy Abel Molinas. Espero de que ya le paren acá el subidero de renta de los inquilinos, porque como por esa misma condición están viviendo muchos en la calle y luego pues están muchas casas en la reparación y no las tienen de renta y esperamos de que
Language challenged person, please let him finish. We'll get back to you. Go ahead.
y esperemos que ya le paren a...
Pasan, por favor.
¿Qué pasó?
Por favor, pasan, hablan. Rita, can you translate this after? Summarize it after. Por favor, señor.
Sí.
Sí.
No, pues esperemos acá que ya pongan las casas que supuestamente que están resanando, que ya las pongan de renta, porque como ahí las tienen paradas, supuestamente que las están resanando y no las tienen de renta, oiga, y la verdad de que ya esperemos que las tengan ya de renta, como para rentarlas, como para que ya no andemos acá en las calles, como para que andemos sufriendo. Gracias.
Rita Moreno, Office of the City Clerk.
Basically, what he was asking is, or saying that he was in support of this motion because he feels that they need assistance in having units that are currently vacant and not for rent for folks who need a place to live in order to live there, that they're too expensive, people can't afford them, and instead they're being used for hotels.
Okay, thank you. Can we move this item?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just suggest a couple of additions to this item, which I had a moment to discuss with Mr. Bonin offline. First, I think the study component of this is really important, and it will be more valuable if we also ask the various departments, to the extent that they are able, to identify the reasons that so many units remain vacant, because that will help dictate what the appropriate policy is to remedy that problem. There could be widely different reasons, each of which would require a different policy solution. And then second, with regard to the second moving clause of the motion, I would also ask that the CLA, with the assistance of the CAO, when they report back to us, also report back to us with potential incentives and other policy options that might be considered by the council in order to reduce these vacancies and put them to productive use, not only for long-term housing, but also potentially for emergency and other housing for homeless people or people facing homelessness, people who have Section 8 vouchers and have been deprived of an opportunity to utilize them, the many other housing needs that we have. Some of these vacant units might be able to be utilized with appropriate incentivization from the city. So I'd ask that that be reported back as well.
Including but not limited to rent subsidies of various forms.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Without objection, no
Councilmember?
objection from the author. Yes.
And you're also accepting the amendment by Councilmember Bonin?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Without objection?
Without objection.
Shall be the
Thank
order.
you. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, Mr. Tannenbaum available? Mr. Tannenbaum, you are up. Thank you for returning. Item number 1. Can we please ask those who are leaving to let us continue the meeting? Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, please.
So thank you for having me. I look forward to continuing my service to the City of Los Angeles as a Commissioner for the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles as we talk about the lack of housing affordability that is so clear, and no one hears it more than the folks in front of me, that we as an agency whose priority is providing the affordable housing to our city, and the largest provider of affordable housing through the Section 8 vouchers and the public housing. I'm proud to be part of this organization. And as we talk about this issue of Section 8 and the difficulty in enticing apartment owners to take on the Section 8, I am pleased to be part of an organization who's trying to think out of the box and coming up with and staffing up for a new program that will involve an acquisition program for the Housing Authority that will allow the Housing Authority to purchase existing apartment buildings at a price point that is a fraction of the new developments that are coming out, and that as units turn, as people move out, so there would be no displacement, we would put people in from the waiting list of the Section 8 program into these existing apartment buildings. And by doing entrepreneurial things like this, I am proud to be part of an organization, and the skill set of myself as being an apartment owner since 1995 and running an organization that acquires apartment buildings. I'm happy to use those skills as a commissioner to help with this program and to continue to do my overseeing role for the city of this large institution.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. Tenenbaum, for your willingness to continue to serve in this capacity. I welcome your suggestion with regard to Section 8 housing. I think that is an innovative, outside of the box kind of solution that we need more of. I think, given your role as a significant housing provider and someone with vast industry experience in this area, you have a real opportunity to help shape the policies that we need to shape in order to encourage more people who have vouchers to be able to actually find a place to use those vouchers. And I look forward to working with you in that and all the other areas of housing policy. So thank you very much for your willingness to serve.
I attach myself to the comments of my colleague. I move this matter, or any objections?
No objection.
Congratulations, sir, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, at this time, let's move items 3 and 4 on consent. Any objection?
No.
Okay, items 3 and 4, I move the committee adopt the recommendations of the CEO reports. No objection?
No objection.
Okay. What's that do to our agenda? Madam Clerk, does that clear the agenda?
I'm sorry, you just consented on which item?
Items 3 and 4 were
3 and
done.
4, then we are done for the day.
Okay. Motion to, no public comment. Motion to adjourn. Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Sachs exhausted his opportunities.
39.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you joining us. We start at 3 o'clock.
No. 0.
Looks like you've been there. See you there.